Several months ago, I think it's been, it may have even been longer, I was having an argument with a guy who he was saying he was in agreement with me about alcohol, Alcoholics Anonymous being a religious cult and all of that other stuff. But at the same time, he was telling me that he was, what was the word he was using? I even did a video about it, but it was he was like an AA agnostic or something like that. And he was more or less telling me that, he later on accused me as being as intolerant as the AA old timers. That's one I get a lot for some reason. It's like when all else fails, they come at you with, well, you're just as bad as the AA old timers. You're just an asshole like the AA old timers. And I've rebutted on that a number of times, so I'm not going to bring it up in this one. But it was interesting because I have an article that I want to go on with this, but it went on until I ended up, I don't know if he blocked me or I blocked him on the social media outlet, but it continued on at even private messaging because he was pissed off at me really badly about it. And the last example I tried to give him to show him why, to me, it just didn't make sense to have this position of, I'm a member of AA, but I hate AA, or I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I don't like what Alcoholics Anonymous is doing, is if you're going to be a member of a religious cult, then, what is the point of trying to reform a religious cult, and why call it by the name of AA at all? Why don't you call it something different? Why don't you give it a different outlet, a different viewpoint? Or why don't you, he would come at me with, we don't read the steps, and we don't like the big book, and we sit around and say, fuck Bill W. I'll be honest with you, I'm highly skeptical any of that shit really happens. But the example before I got blocked from him, I said, pick any political association or political movement that you want. And the best way I knew how to do it, I just grabbed one out of the middle of the air. I just said communism. Okay, let's say you're an anti-communist, and let's say I'm playing the part of, I'm not a communist, by the way, but let's say that a guy comes along and he tells you, I'm a new communist. Okay, I'm not like the old communist. I don't care anything about the old communist. I'm the new communist. And you as an anti-communist say to him, so you believe that the workers should control the means of production in any given economy. Just an example. This is all hypothetical. And the guy responds to you with, no, I don't believe that bullshit. Of course not. That's old communism. I'm new communism. And you say, so in other words, like where Karl Marx was writing about in one of his books, we don't read Karl Marx in our meetings. We just say fuck Karl Marx and fuck Leninism and fuck any of that other kind of thing. We're the new communists. We're not like those communists. And every single point you bring up to him about communism, he comes back and saying, well, fuck that. I don't believe in that, but I'm still a communist. Do you get the point that I'm trying to make with such a hypothetical example? Why call yourself that if you're not that in any way, shape, form, or fashion at all? You don't see me going around, for example, calling myself a Democrat or a Republican or an alt-right or an alt-left or a SJW or whatever. You don't see me calling myself any of those things because I don't believe I am any of those things. I don't believe actually in trying to fit in one particular political category, so I'm not going to claim to be something that I'm not. But, it seemed like I didn't get through to him with that example. Maybe it was a pathetic example. I don't know, but he got pissed off and just said I was as bad as the AA old-timers, and he more or less blocked me. Or I blocked him. I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. It's pointless. But that conversation kind of came back up this week in my head when I stumbled across his article on the fix. And sadly enough, it started out with what I felt was a lot of hope. I said, well, the fact that the fix is publishing this thing should have kind of caused all my long hair back here to stand up, because usually the fix used to be actually kind of an open forum where people could argue and people could present different viewpoints. And unless you want to get involved in the comment section at the bottom, which is generally just a shit-flinging fest, which is happening everywhere now with anything. I mean, any news article, any type of discussion, it's just a whole bunch of insulting and name-calling in the comment section, and there's no real discussion. And to me, I find it funny when people call that stuff debates, okay? That's not a fucking debate. When you're telling people, to fuck off, or when you're telling people you're just a dumbass and you're a fucking moron, you don't know what you're talking about, that's not an actual debate. I mean, I just want to clear that up. But But on this particular article, I have to add that some of the comments were actually pretty good because they were actually kind of where I was coming from. But I started out on a hopeful note when he started with the evolution of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it needs to happen now. It was a little bit, is this going to be another one of those guys that says he doesn't believe in AA, but he's a member of AA anyway, and I was willing to go into it kind of with an open mind, I suppose, But he says the founders of recovery purposely left the door open for science. No, they did not. To come into the realm of recovery, and unlike modern AA, they did not discount its potential importance when it came to helping people. That's absolutely not true. I can say that right now at the beginning. In the very beginning of the Big Book, in the foreword to the Big Book, it says they welcome inquiry from religious communities. They welcome inquiry from scientific communities, that they are willing to be questioned, etc., etc., etc. Nowhere at any time has AA ever cooperated with scientific introspection. Nowhere at any time have meetings ever been open for people to come in and say, I want to inquire about this thing. I want to see the effectiveness of it. Now, before somebody jumps in and wants to talk about, that's not back in the old days when the thing was getting off the ground. No, in the old days when the thing was getting off the ground, you can look in the traditions, in the 12 and 12, where the guy showed up and he had an addiction to another substance, as well as some other issues that were going on. He introduced himself as a strange alcoholic, and they all wanted to throw him out. They all said, this is not where we should, he don't belong in here. This is for alcoholics only. And supposedly in the bullshit story, one of them said, what would the father do? And of course, they all agreed that the father would accept him in. Likely, it's just another case of more cult brainwashing and more members coming in. Isn't it funny? You can believe in any God you want to when you're a member of AA, but what would the father do? I mean, what if you worship what if you're a goddess worshiper? And you ask in a meeting, what would the mother do? Everybody would sneer and smirk and make little gestures behind your back. That's what would happen. You can believe in any God you want to in AA as long as he wants you to work steps, stay in meetings, and kiss up to sponsors and recruit more members, But there never was this golden age in AA where AA was ready to join the modern world, where AA was ready to do something different. You can go to the Armitage Papers and you can look at the whole history of the Big Book. For one thing, these two guys, did not start Alcoholics Anonymous based on some chance meeting in a motel, where one guy wanted to drink and he called the doctor and he said, I really need to talk to another alcoholic. That's not quite how it works. It sounds so nice. And the fairy tale reality that they invented in Alcoholics Anonymous, that these two guys just happened to brush into one another and created this wonderful thing today that saved billions of people. Except it's not true. They were recruiting heavily for the Oxford group, which you don't hear a lot about them any longer, even though they are still around. I forgot what their new name is. But they were recruiting for the Oxford group and members of the Oxford group long before this shit even happened. There's documented proof on that. I mean, it's disputed whether they were thrown out of the Oxford group because they kept bringing drunk people around, or whether they got too grandiose. That's kind of in dispute. But the idea that they opened up the organization to scientific inquiry and wanted it to evolve, no. Oxford, Frank Buckman and the guy that started the Oxford group believed you had to surrender to God control, in order to live a productive life. You had to surrender your will and power to God control. His 6 steps is almost like the exact 12 steps that the occult religion uses today. He just wrote a little bit more wording into it, a little bit more flowery language, but and obviously the Oxford group was interested in money and prestige. They liked to get their wealthy members. They didn't really much care about these drunks that didn't have a lot of wealth to give their way. There's an interesting book you can find online. It's called Saints Gone Mad or Saints Run Mad, something like that, by a lady. I'll have to post a link. I can't say it off the top of my head. It's written from kind of a Christian perspective, which is kind of interesting. But even she had a lot of reservations about, the Oxford group, and this is long before Blabbering Bill and Babbling Bob came along. But anyway, let's get back to the article. The guy writes, I'm an alcoholic. There's no such thing. Or as conventional wisdom goes, an alcoholic in recovery. Well, in my case, after being in recovery for years and going on drunken binges and getting DUIs and being in emergency rooms, and ICUs, and yeah, I did go through the DTs. It used to piss me off when people would say, I've been through the DTs, and I got on the phone and called my sponsor. No, when I had the DTs, you don't even know what your fucking name is or what planet you're on when you're going through the DTs. It's the most horrible experience of my life. And what I'm getting to the point at with this is that, the last time I drank, I had a little too much to drink one night, and I woke up and I had the old headache, just like always. I had the nausea, just like always. I had this rotten taste I couldn't get out of my mouth, even though I brushed my teeth, even though, I had rinsed my mouth out. Nothing took it away until I drank me a little more alcohol, and, I was feeling a little shaky, and I felt kind of down and out all day long, and I said, something, fuck this. I'm tired of living like this. It wasn't no big, grandiose bottoming out situation, so I'm not an alcoholic in recovery. I'm a guy that's just sick and tired of experiencing that, and just said I'm not going to do it anymore. But he says I've had my share of rehabs, detoxes, and IOPs. I'm not sure what IOP is. Inpatient, outpatient. Okay. I've dealt with numerous counselors, doctors, psychiatrists, and even a hypnotist. I've mastered white knuckling, and I'd given myself fully to the simple program that is AA. Nothing worked. Well, maybe he's going to lead me on to where I am. Maybe not. This is not to say I did not have my dry spells. Well, there's no such thing as a dry spell. You're either drinking actively or you're not drinking. Dry drunk is a myth. It's made up by the cult. As well as full-on productive years of zero consumption of anything that contained ethanol. Still, I relapsed, and I went down a spiraling black abyss pretty confidently when my consumption quickly became prodigious in both amount and frequency of use. Well, I mean, did you ever stop to think about the fact that maybe the reason you went down this black abyss and I went down the same abyss? So, I can say my sympathy with you there. I mean, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to wake up at 4 a.m. and need to drink. I know what it's like to have the shakes. I know what it's like to be unable to sleep, for it to be 1 o'clock in the morning and you got to get out of bed and you got to drink more alcohol. I know what it's like to lose another job, to fuck up another career that you might have had. I know what it's like, to be in that situation. So, yeah, I can sympathize with you talking about that black abyss. Did it ever occur to you that maybe that black abyss existed because AA constantly told you that was what was going to happen if you picked up again? Me, I choose abstinence today, and probably so does he, probably because we don't want to go through it anymore. But the black hole of abyss, is there a possibility it's a self-fulfilling prophecy? Who knows? Okay. Sheer yet fully predictable insanity ensued. Well, that happens usually with addictions. Binges went off and on for weeks. ER visits, yeah, I've gone through the whole entire thing. So now, he writes, this is the crux of the article. It took me too long to get to it. The role of AA in my recovery has been significant. Here we go. It's not him who got himself sober. It's AA. The Fellowship of Men and Women, a genius brainchild of Dr. Bob and Bill, a genius brainchild? It was not their look, they're causing me to fuck up my words. It's not their genius brainchild, okay? It's ripped off from the old Oxford group and other temperance movements that started before that. The idea of a cure for heavy drinking, it goes back a lot further in history than just the Oxford group or those Washingtonians or any of that. There was plenty of temperance movements and plenty of doctors, even in the 1870s, that were offering cures for your drinking ailment. So it's not necessarily their brainchild. They just ripped off a lot of tenets from the Oxford group. Okay, and wholeheartedly endorsed by Dr. Carl Jung himself, has helped countless families. It's also destroyed thousands of families and killed thousands of people. And, Carl Jung, he plays an important part in the foundation of psychology, just like Freud. And just like Lacan, you don't hear a lot about Lacan. I could do a video about him, actually. He was big into the early field, and he had a very interesting analogy about mirror. I won't get into it here. I can bring it up in another episode, though, because it pertains. But anyway, he goes on to say it's incredible in its selflessness. Oh, are you kidding? Selflessness. Most of those people wouldn't piss on you if you were burning up on fire. If you're a relapser, they sure in the hell ain't going to show you anything selfless. I used to hear that story about if you get to the meeting, don't worry, someone will give you a ride home. Bull fucking shit. I walked home many nights for meetings in 20-degree weather, with it fucking snowing outside, I might add, with those people in their fancy cars driving right by me like I didn't even exist. And, you know, I'm not just confining it to my own experiences alone. I can point you in the direction of hundreds upon hundreds of people that'll tell you there's nothing selfless about AA. And he goes on to say, yet today's AA is rigid, too antiquated, and legacy-driven. It was back then. Bill W., Dr. Bob, you know, wanted to be treated like royalty back then. It was always about who had the most time. It was always about the ones who, the hierarchy crushing those on the lower rung. Okay, so I don't know what you mean by it's too antiquated now. It's outdated, but it has been outdated for decades. It wasn't good science even in the 1930s, okay? It reminds me of an old movie called Maniac. It's considered one of the worst movies ever made in 1935, 1934. And in between each take, it's really a horrible film. I'd never recommend that to anyone. It's not the worst film ever made, though. I've seen a lot worse. But in between each take, it shows little readings from psychiatric books about insanity. And I mean, it's so outdated. It's so idiotic, I guess you could say, that by today's standards, it wouldn't make any sense any more than some of the medical practices of the 19th century or in the early 1700s would make sense to us now. I could go into those, but it would be off topic. But as far as antiquated, I mean, it has never had a place in the modern world whatsoever. It hasn't had for decades. Okay, decades. It's suppressed all attempts to call it out into question. He's acting like it just happened yesterday, that people are you know, discouraging scientific evidence. It's always discouraged scientific inquiry. After all, back in 1939, he writes, this was an absolutely revolutionary, even visionary breakthrough. No, it wasn't. Do you ever heard of the New Thought movement? Look that up. That was all over the place in the early 20th century. But we're not in 1939 or even 2009. He's right there. And so AA must adapt or it will lose its edge. You can't adapt a religious cult. A religious cult is founded in antiquated ideas of powerlessness and that you can't get better without surrendering to some vague higher power that wants you to keep you in meetings forever for the rest of your life. Can't be revolutionary or it can't be updated. And losing its edge. It never had an edge. It wouldn't even be in existence now were it not for the fact it's got its fingers in all the courts and the legal systems and the treatment center industry. Both Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson were complex, highly educated, empathetic and caring individuals. They were not highly educated. They were not empathetic and caring individuals. You can look up and read about Bob. Bob was an abusive old bastard that treated his daughter something horrible. And Wilson, you know, he went around telling everybody how he was this genius Wall Street broker. He was no such thing. There is actual proof of what I'm saying here, too. I'm not just making that up. But empathetic? Empathetic. You know, Bill W. had to be forced to write the 12 and 12 while he was in the middle of a nervous breakdown. His right-hand guy at the time, his name was Tom Powers, was disgusted with him because he wouldn't stop treating his wife the way he was doing. He wouldn't lay off all the other destructive addictions he was around. And he was leading a very horrible life, he said at the time. And at the time, Bill W. would sit at his typewriter and cry because he hated the idea of writing another book for AA. There's your highly intelligent, caring, compassionate individual who wouldn't even change his own way or his own beliefs or his own attitudes, even though he knew it was bringing a lot of harm to other people. Which is another cult tactic, I might add, by the way, to say the cult works for you and works miracles for you when you know for a fact it's not doing a fucking thing for you in your life. I mean, Bill died begging for booze, but the program works. Their realization of a prominent role of a higher power in recovery did not come easy. Sure it did. Read Bill's story. You know, what does he say? Ebby comes to see him, and Ebby tells him, I got religion, and Bill doesn't believe him, and then Ebby says, choose your own God. And Bill suddenly claims he has this icy intellectual mountain of bullshit just melt, and that, you know, he'd never drink again, and that he would give himself over to the Father of Light. and and that he was never an atheist because only atheists believe that nothing comes from nothing and goes nowhere and does nothing, which is, by the way, not what atheists think. I don't know where he got that idea from that fucking book. Whoa, nothing coming from nothing, going to nothing is what atheists believe. So he wasn't very educated about that either, because you did have atheists and agnostics in the 30s. Okay. Skeptics, cynics as they were, no, they weren't skeptics and cynics, they were con artists and cheaters. They had to overcome an internal struggle before making peace with the fact that human nature was helpless in the face of the monstrous foe of addiction. That is a total gigantic insult to every human being that's ever had to overcome something in life in terms of addictive behavior or otherwise. You're totally helpless in the face of addiction. So in other words, all these people that have put down their bad habits for whatever idealistic reasons, or for health reasons, or for whatever motives, they don't deserve any credit for that at all, right? They don't deserve none, because it was only a higher power that could do it. That's such an insult, to me in some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. You're saying that you did nothing. Even though you didn't buy any more alcohol, that you didn't shoot up any more heroin, that you stopped seeing your dealer, that you stopped going to liquor stores, that you stopped doing the things you used to do, you don't get no credit for that. I mean, you're helpless. You're shit in the face of this addiction. You need God. How insulting. The resulting text, which we all know now is the Big Book, was the product of a multi-year intellectual effort. I don't know where you're going. You're grabbing this shit at, because, the first 100 people were all promised money for the Big Book, and they were promised all kinds of royalties. And when most of them didn't stay sober, when most of them realized they weren't going to get paid, Bill just ripped all their stuff out of the book and just left his stuff and replaced the back with new stories and new editions. And didn't give these guys any credit whatsoever. Kind of like the guy who wrote Two Employers. He never got any credit for that. To hear this whole thing talk, it was all Bill. And it was all Bill. He was so greedy for money that he made sure to fuck everybody over in the early days so that they never would see a penny of it. But it was a multi-intellectual effort over a year. There's nothing intellectual about it. He's ripping shit from the Oxford group. My God. For example, one little known fact about the book is that initially it used the second person throughout his chapter, as in, you recover, you need to, you have a problem. The authors decided to change it to the first person, we, which brought a completely new tone to the script. Oh, it did? From preachy and authoritative, it became welcoming and tolerant. I don't know about the second person, but I can tell you this. In the early days of AA, I knew people who said that you had to do your third step on your knees in front of the whole entire group. So I doubt it was all that tolerant. The idea of higher power came about because some of the members was afraid they would run people off because of Bill Will's preaching, because of his holiness, because of his demand that you had to do this, In fact, it's said in a lot of AA meetings, Bill Wilson said the only thing he ever regretted putting in the Big Book was rarely have we seen a person fail. It should say never have we seen a person fail. And all the fucking brainwashed people who just sit there and nod so emphatically to these assholes making all these proclamations. In addition, they write, when it comes to finding ways to recover from alcoholism, specifically becoming a normal drinker, as opposed to an alcoholic, the book mentions that science one day may accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. The book also says we're like men who can't grow back our legs. The book also says that we'll never recover. The book also says we can never safely drink again. The book also says if we go 25 years without a drink and drink again, we're going to die. The book also says that if you just have one drink, you're going to end up in a binge. The book also tells you that you'll sicken and die unless you conform to the principles of AA. The book also tells you if you don't accept a higher power, you're going to die. So it doesn't at all mention a time when you will be able to moderate or control your drinking. As a matter of fact, what is that one end? I think it's in the chapter, I don't remember which chapter it is exactly, but it says if you don't know if you're an alcoholic or not, just go to a bar and start drinking. Which to me sounds rather cruel, I mean, would you say that to somebody that had a severe problem? Like if somebody came to you and they were a severe heroin addict and they said, I'm messing up here and there and I need to stop, but I don't know what to do. Would you say, well, what you need to do is go over there to your dealer, get a bunch of heroin and shoot it all up. Then you'll know, won't you? I mean, That's their tolerant message, by the way. But he goes on to say, in fact, multiple recovery groups and schools of thought have stepped in to fulfill this prediction. Well, no, he's right. For instance, the Sinclair method introduced this harm reduction model based on the preemptive use of naltrexone to reduce cravings and use. That's true. Like with everything else, if it works for you, great. It did not for me or any other alcoholic I know. Oh, you had to throw that in. It didn't work for me or any other alcoholic I know. In other words, if you're an alcoholic, it's not going to work for you. Even though it has a scientifically proven statistical rate of actual trackable recovery. But you had to throw that in defense of AA, didn't you? It didn't work for any other alcoholic I know. You know, they used to kill me with that all the time. They would say something in AA like, you may be able to moderate. I never saw an alcoholic that did. Most of them are dead because they tried to moderate. I almost drank myself to death trying to drink normally. You never hear that. That they always have to throw in that little bitty thing right there at the end. This little clause, it may work. I never saw it work for anybody, The founders purposely left the door open for science to come into the realm of recovery. Nowhere and no place did they ever do that. Okay? He says in the big book itself, he says that the verdict has been handed down through the ages that real men of faith have courage. He goes on to say that, the men of science can't do what we can do because we believe in a invisible realm and a spirit of the universe and that what we call God and feeling close to your creator and all that. Nowhere in the big book outside of that very opening page in the forward in the big book where he says we welcome scientific religious inquiry. There is a hint of that in the doctor's opinion. There's a hint of that somewhere in the doctor's opinion near the end, and they have to throw in the little clause again, at the end where he says, those who come to scoff will stay to pray, or some shit like that. But really quickly in the big book, they start saying, if this makes sense to you, if you identify with this, it goes from that in the early part to just automatically jumping into, do an inventory, get into action, or you're going to drink again. If you skip this vital step, you'll never overcome drinking, blah, 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 blah. So though they didn't leave the door open, they did not discount its potential importance when it came to helping people. Yes, they did. Oftentimes they would say something like, science will answer this question, but we have not. And many times they even said that, there's one chapter, I don't know if it's in Working with Others or if it's in the We Agnostics, but there is a place in the big book where it says that the man's religious convictions were not sufficient for him to get his spirituality. Meaning your religion is really worthless if you're a drunk. You really need their brand of spirituality. Okay, so it never left it open to say we're going to evolve and we're going to change. I appreciate you trying to point that out and defend AA, but that's not what it says. My respect and love for AA is beyond mere deference. I firmly believe that its overall purpose is remarkable. No, it's not remarkable. As long as you keep pushing that narrative, more people are going to die out there from being fed the false narrative that they have to completely surrender their will and their lives to some vague higher power that wants them to sit in meetings and be abused by old-timers. More people out there are going to go to AA who have been victims of rape or victims of child abuse and are going to be told that they need to look at their part in it, that they need to look at their part and examine where they went wrong and why they did that because they're selfish people. So the more you push this kind of narrative, the more people you're harming, whether you know it or not. I also know it could have been more effective in reaching more people if they actively adopted or discussed modern-day scientific findings when it comes to addiction. That's because it's not a scientific program. It is a religion, a religious cult. What does Ebby say when he comes to see Bill? I've got religion. What does it say in the chapter in the big book where they're talking about making amends? And they're talking about when you're going to make your amends, you don't tell the guy you've got religion. What do they say in the big book when they're talking about working with others? It says stress the religious feature freely. There's nothing about this that's scientific. The book should be akin to the concept of a living, breathing constitution. A living, breathing constitution. Constitutions get amended. Constitutions get ratified. Constitutions change. Constitutions are allowed to change based on the will of the voters and the people, supposedly. I can argue about that a little bit, but I won't get into that here. Nobody in AA has any say-so in what goes on. The hierarchy dictates all. The people on the lower side all want to become the hierarchy. So everyone's either kissing some old-timer's ass or is an old-timer. There's no living, breathing constitution with a vote. There's no voices of dissent. Go to an AA meeting right now. Go to any AA meeting in the country. Go in there and say, I quit drinking. I never worked any steps. I don't have a spiritual problem. And I don't need God to do it. But I love AA. And see how they treat you. See how the next few people share right after you're done talking. Let's take a look at the concept of singularity. Oh my God, here we go. He's going to try to use, as defined by famous futurists, and then he writes, coincidence? I guess he's going to say, I think not, because he's a futurist. Google Directors of Engineering Ray Kurzweil essentially summarized in an ever-developing concept of a progressively consequential role of technology in everyday life. Technology evolves and changes, and technology hasn't got a goddamn thing to do with cult religion. One of the most striking illustrations is that an average child in Africa or Russia can talk on the phone. What the fuck does that have to do with AA? You know, I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, I thought 45 records and 33 RPMs were the shit until CDs come out. You know, what does that have to do with addiction? But again, he goes on to say the same type of evolution awaits AA in particular and the fight against addiction in general. Get with the program or get run over. Yeah, you know, do what we say or die, you know. Do the steps or die, you know. As progress does not stop, and it's exactly what Bill Wilson understood so well in his pragmatic ingenuity. No, he did not. In his last speech where he said AA had to change and evolve, he wasn't really talking too much about scientific inquiry. He didn't come out. Did Bill W. ever come out and say, certain parts of this book, they don't mean anything anymore, you know, because this is the 1960s when he was talking, right? Did he come out and say, you know what, that chapter about moral psychology that's in the doctor's opinion, that doesn't need to be there anymore because, you know what, after 20 years, I've decided that's no longer appropriate. I think we need to vote on it. Did he ever do that? Did Dr. Bob ever come out and say, you know, something in the 10 or 15 years it's been since I wrote about my nightmare and the things I had to say back then, I don't feel those things are relevant today, and I wished I could rewrite those a little bit, or I would like an opportunity to clarify those things. Did he ever do that? Has anybody in AA anywhere ever put forth the notion that something in the big book no longer applies any longer? Step 4 don't apply to people if they're victims of child abuse and rape. Has anybody ever put any of that forward anywhere at any time before Bill or after Bill? From the reptilian middle brain and limbic system responsible for survival, hijacking the thinking territory of the prefrontal cortex. Oh my God, he's going to be a scientist now. In the AA lingo, home of the white-knuckling demon. I don't want to go into all that. It would take another hour. The brain's neuroplasticity. By the way, neuroplasticity wasn't even understood back then. Some people debate its existence now or how it works and its functions. I could point you out to a few scientists if you'd like. The ability to heal itself and learn new reward pathways after alcohol or after meth, heroin, porn, etc. Porn is not physically addictive. Anybody that tells you that they have a disease and is forcing them to watch porn is totally full of shit. I've never had serious withdrawals or heard of serious physical withdrawals to porn. And by the way, I thought AA was about singleness of purpose. What the fuck are you over here doing proselytizing about porn for? What the fuck difference does it make to you? I mean, all the people in AA are 13-stepping old-timer asshole rapists anyway. You know, a lot of them, not all of them. But they pissed me off with their little morality bit. That's not to say it's effectively preempted the field and left no room for miraculous recovery. Doctors call it spontaneous remission. That's not miraculous, okay? That is not miraculous. It's not miraculous to get blasted fucking drunk the night before and wake up and say, Jesus, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm physically addicted. I need some medication to get off of it, and I'm going to do that. That's not a miracle, okay? A miracle would be if you went and got a CAT scan and they said you're eat up with cancer. You probably got 2 months to live. Okay, and then a week later, they gave you the CAT scan. They said you have no traces of cancer whatsoever. We don't understand how that possibly happened. That would be what you would call a miracle. But Spontaneous remission by quitting drinking is certainly no fucking miracle. And I'm going on a little. And now here we go again. What I'm referring to instead of is inclusiveness. I'm going to skip some pages because he goes on about spirituality and shit. And I've done talked too long anyway. What I'm referring to is inclusiveness and intentional wariness of rigidity. Go to an AA meeting and say, I don't want to read how it works. Go to an AA meeting and say, I don't feel like reciting the 12 traditions and I don't think they apply today. Go to a meeting somewhere and say, nobody from this day forward can say some have to die so that others can live. Nobody can say, therefore, by the grace of God, go I today. See how well it goes over. Okay, there's nothing tolerant about AA. There's nothing open-minded about AA. And then he goes on to bring up a shapeshifter in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. And I'm not going to go into all that either because it has absolutely nothing to do with the article whatsoever. As a matter of fact, maybe I should bring up how, the writing on Game of Thrones just went to absolute shit in season 8. And I've still got a resentment over that. Maybe that has something to do. That has as much to do with this, with the topic at hand as what he's talking about here about awe-inspiring powers that Gandalf the Grey couldn't dispatch the demon through conventional wisdom and had to adjust and shapeshift into Gandalf the White. Nobody's shapeshifting shit in AA. It's still the same religious cult it always has been. So anyway, this is 36 minutes of me. I didn't expect to actually get into this the way I did, but every time I think somebody's going to hopefully, call AA out for what it is and say it's anti-science, it's anti-reason, it's anti-open-mindedness, it's anti-everything that what this particular author is asking for in terms of being more inclusive, more open, more this, more that. It's not any of those things. It'll never be any of those things, I don't think. And if it ever adopted to modern scientific terms, why call it AA any longer? Okay? I'll see you guys hopefully soon.